Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next talk. Now we're going to learn about giving the perfect intro to coding workshop in Python. This is going to be brought to us by Dawn, Jennifer, and Doris, who join us from the Women in Computer Science Club from Simon Fraser. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves and say where you're all located at?
Yep.
So hello.
Hi. Oh, sorry. My name is Dawn and I'm in Vancouver.
I'm Jennifer. I'm also in Vancouver.
I'm Doris. I'm in Taiwan right now.
Very nice. So I'm guessing this is from experience, given a coding workshop before? Wonderful. All right, well, I am looking forward to learning how to give the perfect intro to coding workshop. So let's get started.
Hi there. Welcome to giving the perfect intro to coding workshop in Python. I want to begin by saying we are experts by no means, but we're really passionate about showing other people that they can code. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be showing both a format for hosting an in-person workshop and a virtual workshop. We'll be providing tips on running an intro to coding workshops and giving you the materials that you can use to run this workshop in your own communities.
So a little bit about our workshop history. We've hosted this Intro to Python workshop 3 times, once in person and twice online. We've hosted it in person at Simon Fraser University for International Women's Day, virtually for TriCatch, a conference for high school girls, and also just this January as a virtual workshop that was open to everyone in the community.
I'll begin by talking about in-person workshops. Some of it might be obvious, so I'll go through them fairly quickly. So the room setup is where the instructor is in the front of the room with a projector or TV. Attendees are sitting with their computers, either provided by the organizers or with their own. Pairing up is fine, but avoid larger groups since usually someone gets left out. It's essential to have mentors available to help the workshop attendees. Mentors are people who know the workshop material well and can help the participants. They've also seen the workshop slides beforehand and are familiar with the technologies. An attendee with a question can raise their hand, and a mentor will walk over to their computer and help them figure out what's wrong. We try to aim for a ratio of 5:1 attendees to mentors, but this is a rough guideline and very subjective and situation dependent. Also, try to have a diverse group of mentors to help all attendees feel more comfortable in the environment. Because the workshop is mostly the instructor showing what to do and the participants doing it, it's easy for them to fall behind the group. So the instructor should pause after each step so it alternates between the instructor doing an explanation of concepts and giving instructions, and implementation where the attendees can do the exercises on their own and raise their hands and ask the mentors for help. Note in the picture, the participants are referring to an Arduino book and not reading something else in the workshop.
Now for the typical virtual workshop, also known as a remote workshop, an online workshop, all mean the same thing. So when I first heard about groups attempting to host virtual workshops, I had no idea how they would work. Just how? But then I volunteered to be a mentor for some of the virtual workshops that Doris and Jennifer were planning for TriCatch, like teaching coding to high school girls. And after I did that, I started to see how virtual workshops could work. The basics of the virtual workshop is what I'm going to talk about now. We think that we've figured out a formula for virtual workshops that works pretty well. We're not saying it's perfect, but we did test this through a Intro to Coding workshop in January. It was mostly attended by university students, but we think it's pretty good. It should work for other groups as well. So there are a few obvious points about how virtual workshops compare to in-person workshops. First of all, participants and mentors need to bring their own equipment. They need their own computers and they need to have their own internet access. We can't provide that equipment anymore. But many of the parts of the workshop are the same as in person. There's still an instructor who teaches things. There's still participants who implement those things with the help of mentors. And there's still this step-by-step instruct, implement, instruct, implement. Also obvious is you have to pick some video conferencing platform. And the one you choose will dictate your workshop format to some extent. And the one that we chose is Zoom. For a couple of reasons. One is that it's very popular, so that many people have experience with it. They're familiar with it. But also SFU gave us a Zoom license, so it made sense from that standpoint as well. One thing of note about Zoom is the issue of Zoom bombing. So Zoom bombing is basically when some unauthorized person comes into your Zoom meeting and does inappropriate things that you really don't want. It can really ruin the meeting. So there are steps to prevent this. I'm not going to discuss them here, but I have linked to an article in PC Mag which has many steps for how to mitigate the risk of Zoom bombing. So just as the in-person workshop, there are instruction parts and implementation parts to the workshop, and they take place in a few different areas of the Zoom meeting. So first, all the participants start in the main room where the instructor is leading the workshop. The instructor shares their screen, explains the concept on a slide, and then tells the participants to make a change to their code. They pause for a few minutes for the workshop participants to implement that thing and debug and ask questions to mentors. So there are two ways that a participant in the workshop can ask a question. The first is they stay in the main room and they ask a mentor through the chat feature there. Because of the way Zoom chat works, their message will be visible to everyone in the Zoom meeting. And I'll talk more about that later. And if the answer to their question is quick, the mentor will just answer it by typing in the chat. But if the mentor thinks that the question requires more help, they can tell them to please enter a breakout room, which is the second way to get help from a mentor. As a participant, you can join a breakout room in the Zoom call, which is like a sort of like a sub meeting in the Zoom call. It's another meeting, but it's related to the main one. And then in this breakout room, a mentor will be waiting and they can help, they can talk, they can share screen or just use chat if they're more comfortable with that. But the point is there's more attention that the participant is able to get from the mentor. And there could be multiple people in a breakout room, but the mentor can keep track of who came in what order and make sure everyone gets their needs attended to in first in, first out. Then when the implementation time is up, a Zoom host will bring everyone back into the main room, so taking people out of the breakout rooms forcibly, and everyone's back together, and the instructor can teach the next concept on the slides. And then this will repeat until the workshop is over. Okay, so maybe this was hard to picture, but we're going to look at some screenshots now. So here is what the host and co-host of a Zoom meeting get to see. During our last workshop, I was dealing with most of the Zoom administration, and it felt like I was using Space Shuttle launch software. But don't worry, we will break down this complex screenshot in a moment. And I'm sorry if things look squished. Sadly, I did not have an external monitor. Also, please note that I've hidden participants' names and faces, or full names and faces, except for Jennifer and I, because we gave consent. So here, highlighted in the red box, here is the screen being shared. This is Jennifer's screen, since she's the one teaching the workshop. And you'll notice that here is Replit, which we'll talk about later. But basically, this is where Jennifer is typing her code, and running it. And she's switching between that and her slides in this other tab. So pretty basic. Of course, some parts of Zoom you're probably already quite familiar with. I just want to point out a few things. And then here, something else you probably understand is just the videos and names of the participants. Most participants tend to not show their cameras. Maybe that's just university students. But we did encourage the mentors to keep their cameras on, and most of them did, just so that there's a friendly face. You're not being helped by just a name in the void. Speaking of names, it's helpful to put your name, or not your name, put your role next to your name in Zoom. So here's me, I'm Dawn, and I'm a mentor. There's Jennifer, she's an instructor, also shown over here. And it's just helpful for participants to know that they're interacting with someone who's helping run the workshop and knows what they're doing. And then here is the Zoom chat. Unfortunately, the Zoom chat sucks, but we made it work. So after Jennifer would teach something, she would ask everyone, did you finish? How was it? And here are some people responding saying, I got it. Wow, this is amazing. It works. And of course, we were also using the chat to deal with questions from the participants. So a workshop participant could ask a question here, like, this is my code, why doesn't it work? Here's the error. And then a mentor could respond by saying something like this, at Alice, add a semicolon. And because there were so many people in this Zoom meeting, here it says 36, but I think there was more at some point, it was kind of challenging to sort out the messages, but I think we have a system that works. What we did was, for the mentors who were in the main room of the Zoom call, we assigned each of them a range of the alphabet. So for example, I was a mentor, so I was assigned letters A to H. So if a participant's name started with a letter between A and H, I would answer that person's question. So I answered the questions of Alice and Frank and Gary, but I did not respond to questions from Mary. That was someone else's job. And so when I responded to someone like Alice, I would use this @ sign so that Alice knows that I'm talking to her and answering her question instead of someone else's. Otherwise, it gets extremely messy. The reason we had to use this system was that we disabled private chat in Zoom, like the ability to message someone one-on-one in Zoom, because it is terrible. Private chat is horrible in Zoom. It's extremely confusing. So for mentors to have to monitor the main chat and their private chat, it would just be too much. So instead we have this system of @messaging participants to respond to their questions. Private chat can also be a source of harassment in Zoom meetings. So it was just better to disable it. And here we have the participants window. Basically, you can see how many people are in the meeting. You have some nice features like mute all, which can be useful if someone forgot to turn their mic off. This is also where you can kick people out of the meeting if they're being disruptive, if they're Zoom bombers. And this is also where you'll see aggregated reactions from meeting participants. So Jennifer asked a question like, did you get this step? Are you done? Many people responded in the chat, but some just chose to react with an emoji, and that appeared here. So that's another useful way of interacting with participants. Now, breakout rooms. This is a feature you might be less familiar with in Zoom. So as I said, breakout rooms are like a sub-meeting within Zoom. At the beginning of this Zoom meeting, I created one breakout room for each mentor who would be in a breakout room throughout the workshop, and I named it after them. So this is Harpreet, the person, and this is Harpreet, the room. So I think that's a pretty good way of knowing who you're dealing with and who's running the room. And you can see that in Harpreet's room are Gagan and Manisha. Justine just left. That's just a weird thing that Zoom does. It grays you out after you leave a breakout room. And in this breakout room, I don't know what's happening. I'm just here in the main room. All I can see are their names. I don't know if Harpreet is helping Gagan or Manisha or both at the same time, but I do have the ability to enter this breakout room. But I wanted to stay in the main call and make sure that things were going okay. And not all participants were aware of how to join a breakout room. So in some cases, I just added them manually after they said something in the chat like, how do I do this? Please help. Please place me. I was like, okay, fine. I'll place you. One other important thing to note about breakout rooms is that you can communicate with people in the breakout rooms if you're a host in the main room. There's a feature called broadcast message or something like that. I'm sorry, it's off screen. There should be a blue button down here at the bottom of this breakout rooms window. And basically you can send a short message to everyone in the breakout rooms. This is useful if you want to say something like, remember, 5 minutes left, or I was using it a lot to say, hey everyone, like let's say Doris's room is free. No participants are waiting in line to get their questions answered. So maybe if Gagan is in line in Harpreet's room, Gagan will decide to leave and go to Doris's room because there's no line. Okay, so that was a lot, but just a recap of what we talked about. There are 3 areas to the Zoom meeting for the purposes of how we were using it for our Intro to Coding workshop. There's the main room where the instructor teaches concepts and describes steps to do. And then there are 2 ways for participants to get help. One is by typing a question in the chat in the main room. And the second way is by entering a breakout room and getting one-on-one help from a mentor and having the ability to talk and share screen and everything, all the richness of Zoom. So I hope that virtual workshop format was clear. If not, please stick around afterwards and ask us questions. We have so much more to say if you really want to talk about the details of how we did this.
So now I'm going to talk about the actual workshop content and why we like this workshop. Beginning with why we chose Python. As you know, Python is a very beginner-friendly and intuitive language. We like it for its easy readability both for participants and mentors trying to debug participants' code. Participants like that it's a language used for a variety of websites that they already know, such as YouTube and Spotify. And they also really like that it has the potential for powerful applications, such as machine learning. The end result of this workshop is a simple password generator program. This is great for the attendees to take home because they feel like they accomplished something, rather than just messing around with some code. Plus, it's a great opportunity to spread public awareness of the importance of password management. So this is the resulting code from the workshop. Participants begin by writing a simple Hello World program, and we add to that program and edit it to become this password generator. Participants learn about variables when they store the password and the password length. They learn about getting user input so that each password can be a different length depending on the user. And they learn about data types and casting when they turn their password length input into an integer. They learn about while loops and built-in libraries and documentation from the random library. And they learn about print statements.
We decided to use Replit, this online IDE shown in the slide, as we found it to be easy to use for beginners and because it doesn't require any installation. We were also able to share a Replit link with the code shown in the slides so participants could begin with these lines in their file. Replit's link sharing features also allow participants to send their code to mentors for easier debugging during the workshop. On debugging, so we also included some curveballs in the demo part of the workshop. Here we intentionally gave them the wrong instructions so that we can walk through the process of debugging together. Providing a few challenges near the end of the workshop allows participants to apply what they learned and work out problems by themselves. This also gives people who may have fallen behind the chance to ask for clarification while others have something to work on.
So now that you've seen what our workshop was about, we're hoping that you want to share coding with your communities. We've provided the following resources for you to do that, including the slide deck of our presentation for the workshops, promotional posters to advertise your workshop. We recommend Replit as a IDE for the participants. We provide a solution code for both the workshop and the challenges. We have a workshop recording online, so you can see an example of how our workshop looked like. And we also provide a feedback survey in case you want to get feedback from your participants.
Thank you all so much for your intro to Python tips and tricks for making a workshop. There's so many great tips there about how to do this virtually. Any other last minute tips you'd love to share before jumping to Q&A? No? All right, so if you have any other questions for Dawn, Jennifer, or Doris, please head over to the Q&A channel. They will meet you there in a minute and be able to help you do your own Intro to Coding workshop. Thank you all so much.